Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Introduction to Psychology Part 1 PSY 312 by Dear Knowledge. Okay, till now we have successfully completed the lesson of forebrain, then we successfully completed the lesson of midbrain, and we have done a deep and great discussion on these two topics. So if you haven't watched that video or if you're new to this channel, I have given the link in description. You can simply click on that link and you can watch our previous videos. In this video we will be discussing the hindbrain and the parts of the hindbrain, which includes medulla, pons and cerebellum. As you can see in the picture, this part of the brain is cerebellum and this part of the brain is pons, and below pons you will find medulla over there. So I have included the flow chart. I will zoom it for you so it will be easy for you people to look at it. This nervous system is divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. I have already given a brief discussion on it, but I will repeat it right here so it will be easy for you people to understand. The peripheral nervous system is divided into somatic nervous system, autonomic nervous system, and then somatic nervous system is divided into efferent nerves and efferent nerves, whereas the autonomic nervous system is divided into sympathetic division and parasympathetic division. Whereas central nervous system is divided into brain and spinal cord. The brain is divided into forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Yet we have discussed the nervous system, central nervous system, brain, forebrain, and midbrain. In forebrain, we have discussed the cerebellum and limbic system, thalamus, hypothalamus. In midbrain, we have discussed the reticular formation, and we will also discuss the reticular formation in hindbrain. In hindbrain, we will discuss cerebellum, pons, and medulla. So the point here to be noted is to not get confused between cerebellum and cerebellum, because cerebellum is the part of forebrain, where cerebellum is the part of hindbrain. Now let's start with hindbrain. The definition of hindbrain includes a region at the base of the brain that contains several structures that regulates basic life functions. So you can see this part of the brain is hindbrain. Hindbrain connects the spinal cord with the rest of the brain. Sensory and motor pathways pass through the hindbrain to and from regions that are situated higher up in the brain. So sensory information coming in from one side of the body crosses over at the hindbrain level, projecting to the opposite side of the brain. And outgoing motor messages from one side of the brain also cross over at the hindbrain level, controlling movement and other motor functions on the opposite side of the body. So this crossover accounts for why people who suffer strokes on one side of their brain experience muscle weakness or paralysis on the opposite side of their body. So hindbrain is basically a region at the base of the brain that connects the brain and the spinal cord. Now let's talk about the parts of the hindbrain. The hindbrain includes the cerebellum and the two structures found in the lower part of the brainstem, the medulla and the pons. Now, three structures make up the hindbrain: the medulla, the pons, and the cerebellum. Now, let's start with the medulla. The medulla the definitions include a hindbrain structure that controls vital life functions such as breathing and circulation. Or you can say that medulla controls breathing, heartbeat, and other vital life functions, which we'll be discussing. Basically, medulla, as the spinal cord enters the brain, it forms an enlargement. And the medulla lies directly above the spinal cord and contains centers active in the control of such vital autonomic functions such as breathing, or you can say heart rate and digestions. And because the medulla is involved in such critical life functions, the medulla also controls a number of vital reflexes such as swallowing or coughing or vomiting and sneezing. Medulla is which attached to the spinal cord has charge of largely unconscious but essential functions such as breathing, maintaining muscle tone, and regulating circulation. So, because the medulla is involved in such critical life functions, damage to the medulla can result in death. Because the vital structures which regulate breathing, circulation, and some reflexes that are essential for an upright posture is medulla. And we know that the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body and vice versa. This is made possible by the crossover of nerve fibers emanating from the spinal cord at the medulla. And the medulla serves as a pathway for the neural impulses traveling to and from the spinal cord. And probably without a medulla, we would not be alive, as it contains the basic survival systems, and damage to this part of the brain is usually fatal. Now let's start discussion on the Pons. Pons definition include a hindbrain structure that connects the medulla to the two sides of the cerebellum, which helps coordinate and integrate movements on each side of the body. Now, if we talk about the location of the medulla, so above the medulla, the location of the pons, above the medulla is a swelling of tissues called the pons, and which represents the uppermost level of the hindbrain. This structure is located in the upper portion of the brainstem above the medulla, and is involved in respiration, movement, sleeping, and waking and dreaming. Pons, literally, which means bridge, includes a bridge of fibers that connects the brainstem with the cerebellum, and the pons also contains several clusters of cell bodies involved with the sleep and arousal. Now, medulla, which represents the upper level of the hindbrain, bulging out behind the pons, is the large cerebellum, and on each side of the pons a large bundle of axons connects to the cerebellum. And the word pons, which we have discussed, means bridge, and the pon is a bridge of sorts. Information from various other brain regions located higher up in the brain is related to the cerebellum via the pons. So let's talk about the cerebellum. Cerebellum definition include a large two-sided hindbrain structures at the back of the brain responsible for muscle coordination and maintaining posture and equilibrium. Now, cerebellum is also known as little brain because cerebellum is relatively large and deeply folded structure located adjacent to the back surface of the brainstem. And the cerebellum is involved in the coordination of movement and is critical to the sense of equilibrium or physical balance. Now, cerebellum functions in the control of balance, muscle tone, and coordinated muscle movements. So it is also involved in the learning of habitual or autonomic movement and motor skills such as typing, writing, or gracefully backhanding a tennis. Now, cerebellum has a convoluted structure and is attached to the brainstem just above the medulla, and it is critical in the coordination of movement and the sense of equilibrium and balance. And damage to this part of the brain results in haphazard, jerky movements, the lack of coordination, and it appears as though the cerebellum is also involved in the coordination of higher mental functions. So although the actual commands for muscle movement comes from higher brain centers, the cerebellum plays a key role in the execution of these commands, and it is your cerebellum that allows you to hold your hand out to the side and then smoothly bring to your nose to a stop on your nose. So this is useful roadside test for drunken driving because the cerebellum is one of the structures first depressed by alcohol, and as we have discussed that damage to the cerebellum disrupts fine motor skills such as those involved in writing, typing, or playing tennis. So, in a nutshell, we can say the jerky and uncoordinated movements can result from damage to the cerebellum, and simple movements such as walking or standing upright may become difficult or impossible. So, the cerebellum is also one of the brain areas affected by alcohol consumptions, and which is why people who is intoxicated may stagger and have difficulty walking a straight line or standing on one foot. And this is also why a police officer will ask a suspected drunken driver or suspected drunk driver to execute these normally effortless movement. So, at the core of the medulla and the pons is a network of neurons called the reticular formation. Reticular formation is basically a network of nerve fibers located in the center of the medulla that helps regulate attention, arousal, and sleep. You can also call it the reticular activating system. So the reticular information is composed of many groups of specified or specialized neurons that project up to the higher brain regions and down to the spinal cord. And the reticular formation plays an important role in regulating attention and sleep. So in regulating attentions, the reticular formations helps screen the flood of sensory information picked up by sensory receptors and directed to the midbrain and forebrain. So that's why we have discussed the reticular formation in midbrain as well as in forebrain. Although the neural pathways involved are far from thoroughly understood, the reticular formation seems to help filter out unimportant sensory information. So, however, when you deliberately, consciously focus your attention on specific aspect of your environment, other brain areas come into play, particularly forebrain regions. So, although other brain areas are also involved, the role of reticular formation in regulating sleep and arousal has been known for some times. And in a famous experiment, the reticular formation of a sleeping cat was electrically stimulated by an electrode that had been implanted in the cat's brain. So the cat instantly woke up fully alert, and the researchers also found that the brain to the reticular formation could cause a permanent state of sleep from which a cat could not be awakened. So no matter what the stimulation was, I have discussed just an interesting experiment with you guys. Okay, now let's come to this picture. As I have discussed the forebrain and the cerebral cortex, and then I discussed the midbrain and hindbrain. So forebrain is basically, as you can see in the picture, it is the uppermost and largest brain region composed of several structures, and the most prominent being of the cerebral cortex. Now, the cerebral cortex divided into two cerebral hemispheres and responsible for sophisticated mental functions. Whereas if you see this part of the brain is corpus callosum, which is thick band of axons connecting the two cerebral hemispheres of the cerebral cortex. And after the cerebral cortex, then there is a midbrain, which is the middle region of brain involved in processing visual and auditory information. And then the topic which we have discussed in our video is the hindbrain. Hindbrain, a region at the base of the brain that connects the brain to the spinal cord, and in which we have discussed the pons, which helps coordinate movements on left and right side of the body, and then we discussed the cerebellum, which coordinates movement, balance, and posture, and after that we discussed the reticular formation, which helps regulate attention, alertness, and incoming sensory information, and then in the end we discussed the medulla, which controls breathing, heart rate, breathing, heartbeat, and other vital life functions. So this was the end of the video. If you like the video, your concept is clear, you can click on the like button, and if not, you can ask us in the comment section. You are welcome to ask in the comment section if there is any topic that was creating confusion and you want us to clear that topic. We will be happy to help you out. And if you want to stay notified for the upcoming videos, you can subscribe to our channel, click on the bell icon if you're new. If you click on the bell icon, you will be notified whenever we upload videos. You can share a link of the videos or channel with your friends and family, because sharing is caring. And until then, Allah Hafiz.